Hey guys, and welcome back to For I Have Sinned. My name is Jess,
And this is Lauren.
and we are back with another bonus episode, part two of the Golden State Killer case. And before we start, just want to let you know that I know our backgrounds are a little weird and wonky, and you know, Lauren's a lot brighter than I am, I think. There's a light out where I am. So just be patient with us while we try and navigate this with video because I guess we're pretty new to this. So,
Yeah, we're working on it.
yeah. All
Ho-
right. Well,
Hopefully it's not too bad.
no, I mean, I hope not. But I mean, like I see on the top there, things are peeking in, whatever. Uh, all right. Well, Lauren, why don't you give us a recap of what we talked about last week?
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna bring it back a little bit just because there was a lot of information in part one. So there's some stuff that I did want to reiterate. We have this guy, Joseph DeAngelo. He was dating that woman, Bonnie. He was super what's the word I'm looking for? He's a very manipulative person. We learned that very early on about his personality. Um, and he was in school. Where I had left off was he was doing an internship, whatever. So in May of 1973, he began working as a law enforcement officer at the Exeter Police Department. And then in November of that same year, 1973, he actually got married. He married a woman named Sharon Marie Huddle. He had met her while he was taking criminal justice classes at California State, Sacramento, and Sharon was actually taking classes. She was studying law as well, so she's like wanting to become a lawyer. Um, the couple lived in Exeter, and when Joseph started working in the police department there, he was in the burglary unit. So that makes sense where we saw he started out pretty much doing burglaries in 1975. So like a year after he joins the police department, he starts, we don't know it's him yet, but there's this rash of crimes that are like, it's like a peeping Tom, there's a prowler, burglaries, whatever, in the cities of Exeter, Visalia, and Cordova. This person actually was dubbed the Cordova cat burglar and the Exeter ransacker. And like you had mentioned in part one, he would kind of look over things that were of monetary value, but he would take things that were probably seemed like they would be of sentimental value.
Hmm.
And it was just kind of a testament as to how he liked to fuck with people a lot. I mean, all of what he did, and we talked about this, was psychological. He would go through women's underwear drawers and like scatter their stuff all over the place. So, over a period of 20 months, there were about 120 burglaries and at least one murder of a man named Claude Snelling.
I was gonna say, right before you said it, like this guy's whole thing is just like fucking with people, terrorizing
Oh,
people.
yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, and in so many different manners,
Hmm.
he's able to accomplish this. It's really crazy.
Yeah.
Um, in July of 1976, D'Angelo actually left the Exeter Police Department and the couple moved to Auburn, which is in the Sacramento area. D'Angelo began working for the Auburn Police Department in August of that year. And 2 months prior, in June of 1976, his crimes had escalated from burglaries to rape in the areas of Carmichael, Citrus Heights. Wow, Citrus Heights, not hikes.
I mean, you might be able to go hiking there, but
Probably. Uh, Citrus Heights, Rancho Cordova, and all of these are in the east area of Sacramento. And he had initially, like we talked about, stalked and targeted women who lived alone or with children. And it was at this point that he became known as the East Area Rapist. He would scour middle class neighborhoods to look for ideal escape routes. That was like a big thing. He would plan ahead. And everything that he did was almost mapped out, you could say. Like he
Yeah.
would go into their homes, he would figure out where he was going to, do these sexual attacks. Like he had everything planned.
Hmm.
Um, and eventually he developed a preference for attacking couples, like we talked about. When he attacked, it was usually at night or in like the very early hours of the morning. So like 1:30 to like 4 a.m., sometimes 5 a.m. He would wake the victims up with a flashlight. He would shine it on their face, and he would always be wearing a ski mask. He would blindfold the woman, and he usually had a knife or a handgun. He would threaten to kill everyone in the house if they didn't comply. So, of course, especially, if somebody has their kids there or whatever, they're going to do what this man is telling them to do because he's got a weapon and they don't want him to kill their entire family.
Hmm.
So, if there was a man in the house, he would make the woman tie up her male partner, usually with shoelaces. That seemed to be his preference of literature. Or he would actually steal like towels or fabric from the home before the attack and cut it into strips and make them like tie each other up with stuff from their own house. So once again, adding to that psychological factor, um, he
And he
would.
would like hide them the ligatures and stuff in the home to for when he came back.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. He would like stick it somewhere so when he came back, he could grab it and tie them up. He would blindfold the woman and tie her with a very specific kind of knot. It's called a diamond knot. And he would sexually assault them. So that was kind of like one of his little trademark things. And we're going to see that throughout the rest of his attacks. He would ransack the house while the victims lay there helplessly, like we talked about. He would eat their food, drink their beers. He would just mess with them so badly by making them think that he was gone. He would leave, come back, whatever. This would continue for hours. He would often flee on foot or on a stolen bicycle. And once again, having his escape planned, he would run through open fields. He also was fond of using like waterways to kind of navigate his way out. It's kind of a theory that he might have even had a boat that he would use to help him escape quicker. One of the victims reported that while he was assaulting her, he actually broke down into tears and was saying, "I hate you, Bonnie. I hate you." Which, if you guys will recall from the first part, Bonnie was the woman that he kind of like forced to get engaged to him, and she broke up with him.
Yeah.
So, actually, one thing that I thought was interesting that I read about was a tabloid. Once they figured out who this Bonnie woman was, they actually said, like, oh, was it her fault that he committed all of these murders? Like, basically blaming her for all of this horrendous stuff that he did, which is fucking horrible.
There's a
Like,
huge theme of like holding female victims accountable for like his crimes
yes.
in this case.
Oh yeah, and even like we had talked about, and you watched the show, so I'm sure you saw those PSAs where they were saying like, "Oh, well, why was she out at night?" Like there's a lot of victim shaming going on during this
Yeah.
time period, for sure.
She's being too inviting by walking at night with a skirt on. Like,
Like
get out
really?
of
Are you
here.
fucking kidding me? I know, but
Yeah.
that was how it was. Like people believed that shit, man. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Women who get dressed in front of the near the window. Like,
Like, did she invite a peeping Tom to look?
yeah.
She was getting dressed in front of a partially obscured window. So, women, you need to be more careful. Like, nah, like, how about we just teach men not to be
Rape.
stalkers and
Yeah.
rapists? I mean, I don't know. Weird concept, but
It's so insane.
yeah,
And I mean, what do they want her to do? Like get dressed in her closet? Like,
I know. I
go
know.
in another in the bathroom with a windowless bathroom? I don't know.
I know. They'll
It's so
they'll find
stupid.
something, some way to blame, even if that was the case. You can't do anything right. It's
No. Um,
so.
go ahead, sorry.
No, that's okay. In 1977, it was believed that DeAngelo had called the Sacramento County Sheriff's Office, and he also called at least two victims to further harass them. So this is once again his psychological kind of mind fucking. In March of 77, he called the sheriff's office and said, I'm the East Side rapist, and I have my next victim already stalked, and you guys can't catch me. And then December of that year, he called again and said, you're never going to catch me. The East Area rapist, you dumb fuckers. I'm going to fuck again tonight. Be careful.
Oh my God.
I know, I know. And then he called one more time saying, I'm going to hit tonight, Watt Avenue. And they actually did send squad cars out to Watt Avenue, and they saw somebody, a man riding on a bicycle, which was a part of his MO. So they do
Mm-hmm.
believe that he did stick to his word and he was in that area, but they don't think that somebody was attacked like the next night. I don't think anybody was attacked that night.
I think that's just he probably was there on the bike and he was doing that to fuck with people.
Yeah, for sure. He loved it. He watched the news. He knew when they were talking about him. He paid attention to the newspapers. Like he was all in on the psychological front of just warfare, basically.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
One victim said that she received a phone call also around this time period of like December 1977, and he said, "Merry Christmas, it's me again."
Ugh.
Yeah. Also in December of 77, a poem titled Excitement's Crave from someone claiming to be the East Area rapist was sent to the Sacramento Bee newspaper, a local television station, and to the mayor's office. And I have that here. I'm going to read it because I do feel like it probably was him. The way that it's written, it's it just makes too much sense to have been a
Mm-hmm.
copycat.
Mm-hmm.
So the poem goes, Excitement's crave. All those mortals surviving birth upon facing maturity take inventory of their worth to prevailing society. Choosing values becomes a task. Oneself must seek satisfaction. The selected route will unmask character when plans take action. Accepting some work to perform at fixed pay but promise for more is a recognized social norm, as is decorum seeking lore. Achieving while others lifting should be cause for deserving fame. Leisure tempts excitement seeking. What's right and expected seems tame. Jesse James has been seen by all, and Son of Sam has an author. Others now feel temptation's call. Sacramento should make an offer to make a movie of my life that will pay for my planned exile. Just now, I'd like to add the wife of a mafia lord to my file. Your East Area rapist and deserving pest. See you in the press or on TV. So, like a lot of what's said, where it's they're talking about a mask, whatever, and even the part about fixed pay because of being a law enforcement officer, they basically get one pay, their like salary, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, it seems like it probably was him. It definitely makes sense. And there later on will be also more writings discovered, not in poem format, but um he did write. So I think it was him.
Yeah, I think
In
so.
Right? I think it makes sense. In January of 1978, DeAngelo's first rape victim ever, like the first victim that he ever attacked, got a wrong number phone call asking for a man named Ray. And then right after, she got called again, and she could hear a woman talking in the background, which is presumably his wife. Um, and on the phone, you hear a man breathing heavily and whispering, gonna kill you, bitch,
Ugh.
bitch, fucking whore. And you heard that. It was on I'll Be Gone in the Dark on HBO, which is a great show that's going on right now on HBO. Just so happened to coincide with all of this stuff happening with the Golden State Killer. So you can actually hear that audio, and it's fucking terrifying.
Yeah, I just watched it. Lauren told me to watch it because I'm kind of slow with watching stuff because kids, but I finally watched that episode tonight, and I got chills. Like
Yeah.
and I say this all the time, but it is like it's out of a horror movie,
Yes.
you know?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Like it's hard to even believe that this is real. And to think that he's got the audacity to make these phone calls while his wife is there. Like you can clearly hear a woman speaking in the background. It doesn't sound like television. It sounds like
No.
somebody actually talking. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later on, but like this is a thing. It's fucking crazy.
Ugh,
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
Just thinking about it, like his
Yeah, because
voice.
he's like, gonna kill
Yeah.
you.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Yeah.
Stop it.
It's, I'm sorry. I'll do more impressions for the Patreon page. How about that?
Okay, cool.
But it's super fucking creepy. And then a few days after that phone call was received, and I believe it was recorded. I think the victim, after getting the first phone call for somebody named Ray, they got suspicious and they actually recorded the second phone call. So that's why that one was recorded. And then a few days later, a counseling service got a phone call from a man claiming to be the East Area rapist, and he said, "I have a problem. I need help because I don't want to do this anymore." And I guess they talked for a couple of minutes, but he actually hung up because he said, "I feel like I'm being recorded," and just hung up. Um, Later on in that same year, this kind of ties into what I was talking about with his writings. A few handwritten items had actually been recovered from a crime scene. There was a suspicious car that was parked near one of the crime scenes, and they found it looked to be an essay that was written about General Custer, which is weird. Um, and I actually found like images of it too. So I can post those. And then there is like almost like a journal entry uh, about an experience in sixth grade where his teacher made him write sentences. I guess over and over and over and over, he was made to write sentences. And he was like very disturbed by this. He was embarrassed. He was crying. Like it was a really traumatic experience for whatever reason. And then a third item, which was a hand drawn map. And then on the other side of the page, the word punishment was written. So they weren't able to ever figure out if that map was an actual location. They did look into it and they couldn't figure out if it was anything. It never um it never coincided with any of the other like crime scenes, so don't know what that was about, but he obviously had a penchant for writing as well.
Yeah, apparently.
Yep. Um And just to kind of reiterate how he liked to keep people guessing, which is evident when he would leave and then come back, during the active time span of the rapes, he would be active for a few weeks, move to a new area. So it was like once they started to catch on to him, he would stop. He would take a break for 3 months and then move to a different area and then start all over again and
Mhm.
a new series of attacks. And this pattern uh, of assaults by the East Area Rapists lasted from June 1976 until July of 1979, spanned the area of 7 different counties, and like you had mentioned in last episode, he accumulated 50 rape victims in that span of time. So it's pretty fucking crazy. He
Yeah.
was just absolutely terrorizing this area. People were horrified. Um, and there actually was a murder of a couple, which you talked about, Brian and Katie Maggiore, in 1978. And those eventually were attributed to the East Area Rapists as well. Also in July of 1979, Joseph DeAngelo was caught shoplifting. Now, mind you, he's still working for the police department and he was arrested for shoplifting. He had stolen a hammer and a can of dog repellent spray, which another thing that early on when he was breaking into people's houses, they were finding that dogs were dead as well, like he was killing dogs.
Oh, I
And
didn't
then
even know that.
yes. And then also in from what Bonnie had talked about when he kicked that dog and broke its neck and killed it. So I guess he
Oh, right.
had, yeah. So that's kind of like a McDonald triad sort of thing where he
Mm-hmm.
was, killing animals. Um, so he was sentenced to 6 months probation, and actually in October, so just a few months later, 1979, he was fired. So he was no longer working with the Auburn Police Department. And then shortly after the last sexual assault, which was July 5th, 1979, and then being fired from the Auburn PD 3 months later, DeAngelo and his wife moved to Southern California. So once again, continuing that pattern of moving to a new area. October 1st, 1979, there was a failed attack in the city of Goleta, which is in Santa Barbara County. House was broken into, couple was tied up, and the intruder was talking to himself, saying, "I'll kill him." The woman heard that, screamed, alerted the neighbors. They found footprints because he fled on bicycle and then on foot, which is the same MO as the East area rapist, but the areas were so far apart that they didn't really know. And they started actually calling him the Diamond Knot Killer because they found that the victims were tied with the diamond knot. Um, a few months later, in December of 1979, a couple was found bound and shot dead in their home in Goleta. And in total, DeAngelo had murdered 10 people in various areas of Santa Barbara, Ventura, and Orange counties from 1979 to 1981. And this is where he earned the name the original Night Stalker, like you had said.
Mm-hmm.
And something kind of interesting that they actually talked about on this on episode of last podcast on the left, they actually were talking about the lead theory, because do you remember we were talking about like why did so much of this shit happen in the 70s?
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever heard of the lead theory?
No.
Me neither. So they it's episode 416 if you want to check it out. But basically Marcus goes on to explain how, and I never knew this, but you see every time you go to a gas pump it says unleaded. Apparently there used to be lead in gasoline, and it has severe psychological effects. It can affect your ability to like have self-control. So it's something really interesting to look into that
Wow.
maybe could have been a factor in this case as well, because I mean you and I were able to rattle off a bunch of serial killers that were active in the 70s, and so that's just something that I wanted to throw in there that I thought was kind of interesting. So now that brings us to 1981. So also happening in 1981. So this was like he wasn't really active for a while after that. His first of three daughters was born. So I wonder if that has something to do with it.
Probably. I
Yeah,
mean, I don't think it was like not a matter of not wanting to. I think it was maybe a matter of like being too busy, you
sure.
know?
Yeah, it just wasn't convenient for him to rape and kill anybody at this point.
Yeah.
In 1982, a previous rape victim received a phone call at work, which of course was believed to have been from DeAngelo, saying that he was going to rape her again. And the police just assumed that maybe he saw she was working there and, using his skills of mind fuckery, decided to harass her. And it was also that same year, 1982, where his wife took the bar exam and became a lawyer. So it's really weird how he has this double life, which is something that we see all the time.
But it's also all like criminal
Yeah, legal.
legal. Yeah.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
it's very very strange. Um, so then, not really much going on until May of 1986, which is when DeAngelo committed his final rape and murder, which was the young woman Janelle Cruz, the 18-year-old that was bludgeoned to death while she was alone at a family member's house. And then throughout the rest of the 80s, nothing really, you don't hear anything too much about any sort of crimes that are following this pattern. His wife had two more daughters, so now he's got three daughters. And he actually began working for a grocery store chain called Save Mart in 1989. And when they were asked about him, they said that he was a good employee. They never had any problems with him. He was a nice guy. He worked as a mechanic. So he, I guess, was just, leading a normal life now. I don't know. Um, but in 1991, a previous victim, once again, he's terrorizing his victims, had gotten a phone call, and they had a conversation for about a minute. I wasn't able to find out what they actually talked about, but this victim said that she could hear a woman and children in the background while he was on the phone with her. So this was like his thing.
Yeah.
Um, it's kind of sick to think that that's someone's father that's doing this shit,
Ugh.
Yeah. So, like you had mentioned in part one, the attacks were not initially linked, um, but due to similarities, they were eventually considered to have been committed by the same person who was called the original Night Stalker. And then there was an investigator in the Sacramento area who had heard about, it's they also called them ONS or ONS, so just for the sake of using less words. He had heard about the ONS rapes and murders, and he also had seen that there was diamond knots used and just a lot of similarities. He suspected that there was a connection between EAR, the East Area Rapist, and the ONS, but it was never confirmed until 2001, so 10 years later, thanks to DNA testing. An article about the link between EAR and ONS was published on April 5th, 2001, and the very next day, on April 6th, a phone call was made to a victim, and the man asked, "Remember when we used to play?" And that was, as far as we know, the last contact made to a victim by DeAngelo.
Yeah.
Once the link between the East Area Rapist and the original Night Stalker was confirmed, the FBI and local police began searching for a suspect again, because now they have so much more information to base it on. And there were physical characteristics that were confirmed by evidence, by victims' descriptions. They pretty much all completely agreed on this physical description of a white male, about 5'10", slender, athletic build, shoe size 9 to 9.5, because all of the crime scenes had tons of his shoe prints left
And
behind.
it was like a unique,
Yes, like a pattern.
yeah, it was
Yes.
almost like an octagon with like lines going through it or something.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. Almost like little like asterisks or
Yeah, yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Uh, his blood type was, he had type A blood, and his sperm, he was a non-secretor, which meant that you know how, like, back in the day with
The blood
early
type.
DNA, yes, exactly, early DNA testing can tell blood type, but there's a certain type of sperm that doesn't. So all of them
They
had
have a
that.
separate blood type
Yep.
than what's in their sperm. You know who else is a non-secretor? Andre Chikatilo.
Oh shit, yes.
And that's how he got away with it for a long time.
For
At one
so
point they
long.
had yeah, at one point they had him and they tested his I guess it was I don't remember what they I think maybe his blood, I don't know. But they tested one of them and it was not the right.
It matched.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's fucked up.
Yep.
Um, so he also was, which it's kind of weird. It's almost like it almost is like they have like evolved to exploit that, without even knowing it. I don't know. It's kind of weird.
And it's rare. It's so rare
It's
too. It's like
rare. And what are the odds that, like, so, how many serial killers would have this characteristic?
yeah.
So another characteristic of this perpetrator was that they believed he was about 18 to 25 years old when the rapes began in 1976. And then There was also like a psychological profile that was drafted, and I'm just going to read that off really quick because some of it is pretty spot on. So it's kind of crazy that they can just make these profiles just based on his habits.
And they're spot on too most
Yeah.
of the time.
Yeah, this one's pretty accurate. So it says an emotional age equivalent to a 26 to 30-year-old at the time the murders began in 1979, engaged in paraphilic behavior and brutal sex in his personal life, which we heard about from Bonnie,
Hmm.
engaged in sex with prostitutes, not sure about that, had some knowledge of police investigative methods and evidence gathering techniques, definitely, sexually functional and capable of ejaculation with consenting and non consenting partners, dressed well and would not stand out in upscale neighborhoods, lived or worked near Ventura in 1980, good physical condition, skilled and experienced cat burglar, and may have begun as such,
Hmm.
has a criminal record as a teenager, which was expunged, had some means of income but did not work in the early morning hours, hated women for actual or perceived wrongs, intelligent and articulate, neat and well organized in his personal life, and drove a well maintained car, the Hemi.
Yeah.
Peeped in the windows of many people who were not attacked, and self assured and confident.
Yeah, I
So,
would say so.
right, a lot of those really very, very accurate. And the whole, even like self assured and confident, like he would scour neighborhoods and he was not worried at all about being caught. Like he just did, it's just crazy.
Yeah.
And even later on, there was an interview that I read with one of his, I want to say it was his nephew, and I guess his nephew had asked him why he stole when he was caught and arrested and whatever. Why did you steal those things? And he said, because I could, and I wanted to see if I could get away with it, like just so that just that's just his personality.
Yeah.
And at least three people had actually been arrested as suspects in the original Night Stalker murders. But one man was actually murdered before the murder of Janelle Cruz, so that eliminated him. Obviously, he was dead. He couldn't have done it. There was another man who was actually in the Aryan Brotherhood, and he lived, yeah, he lived in the area where three of the murders were, but he was cleared by DNA in the 90s. And then another man who was a friend and business partner with one of the murder victims said that during a family counseling session, he had confessed to his pastor that he killed Smith. And I want to say it was a couple. It was a husband and wife that were both killed. And he actually was arrested and arraigned for the murders, but the charges were dropped. And it was confirmed, obviously, that it wasn't him that did it by DNA in 1997. So that's kind of crazy.
But then also, wasn't there another guy, the guy that the husband of one of the women that were killed and like he wasn't home and they talk about it in the docuseries.
Was he actually arrested though? I don't know that
Oh
he
no,
was.
but he
No, he was
but
looked
for like
at.
20 years
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
they were
They were
like he was
suspicious of
still
him.
right, he was still a
Yeah,
suspect
yeah,
for like
yeah.
20, it was like from 81 to like 2000 or something like
Oh
that.
yeah. There were a lot of people that were just. I mean, it's like almost like secondhand torture because they're taking the fall for something that this fucking guy did.
Mhm.
So he definitely, I mean, without even meaning to, was ruining so many people's lives. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Um, I wanted to say really quick, a few years ago when this book came out in 2018, I'll Be Gone in the Dark, um, and I had not heard of the Golden State Killer before that. I had like heard of the original Night Stalker, but I just never really looked into it. And
Sure.
I remember I knew a girl and she was like, "Oh, have you read I'll Be Gone in the Dark yet?" And I'm like, "What's that?" And she's like, "That book about Golden State Killer." And for I never heard of him before. And I got him confused with like one of the, I forget the guy's name, but he would like go like on the highways killing people.
Oh,
Is
what
it
the
like
hell
the
is?
I ninety
Was
five or
there
something?
I-95
I
killer?
75, something like that.
Was it
I think his name was
not?
Randy something. Randy Croft, Randy Kraft.
Oh, I don't know.
Well, anyway, it was like a guy that I guess he would I don't remember. I watched like a movie about it, but he would assault and murder men.
Okay,
And but like the movie I watched was so bad and I just wasn't really interested in the case. So that's who I thought she was talking about. I don't know why. I just thought like I was like, no, I'm not really interested in that one. And now with all this stuff coming out, I'm like, holy crap, like how did more people not know about this?
right. And that
Like
was part of what drove Michelle McNamara to become obsessed with it too, because it wasn't well known.
mhm.
And I know you, if you want to just get a little bit more into uh, about Michelle McNamara,
Yeah,
that'd be awesome.
yeah. So Michelle McNamara, she actually grew up in Oak Park, Illinois. Senior year, she was the editor in chief of the student newspaper, the Trapeze. She graduated University of Notre Dame in 1992, and she had with a bachelor's in English, and then she received an MFA in creative writing at the University of Minnesota. In 1997, she moved to LA to write in the film and TV industry, and she married comedian Patton Oswalt, who's awesome. I love him.
Yeah,
His Twitter's great.
yeah, he's
And
funny.
yeah, he is. And they had a daughter, Alice. But Michelle had, like you said, a really long time fascination with true crime. When she was younger, um, there was a murder like 2 blocks from where she lived. The girl's name was Kathleen Lombardo, and she just could not stop thinking about it. Like when, everybody in the area was all shaken up, and then when they started to move on, she was like, I couldn't move on. So, in 2006, she launched her website, True Crime Diary, and she became interested in the crimes of unidentified rapist, known as the East Area Rapist, and the original Night Stalker. She actually helped coin the Golden State Killer name after her efforts in tying all of these crime clusters together after the DNA linking. In 2013 and 14, she wrote articles for Los Angeles Magazine about the serial killer. She signed a book deal with HarperCollins and began to write about the case. And her book was I'll Be Gone in the Dark, One Woman's Obsessive Search for the Golden State Killer. On April 21st, 2016, Michelle actually died in her sleep in her home. And her death was caused by a mix of Adderall, Xanax, and fentanyl. She also had an undiagnosed heart condition. I'm not even
Oh,
going to try to pronounce it because it's,
okay.
yeah. But the coroner did rule it an accidental overdose.
Okay.
And Patton did not even know that she was taking these drugs. But Patton and true crime writers Paul Haynes and Billy Jensen updated and finalized the book, and it released on February 27th in 2018, which is almost 2 years after her death. Um, it reached number two of the New York Times bestseller list for nonfiction and also number one of combined print and ebook nonfiction. And the book was on the list for 15 weeks. And
Wow.
as we were saying, HBO made a documentary series under the same name, which is currently airing. I think, what is there, 3 episodes so far?
Yeah, I think they come out on Sundays, I want
It's
to say.
so good.
It's so good. It's so well done.
Yeah.
And just hearing her talking and seeing videos and stuff, I'm like, oh man, it's such a bummer that she died. Like she just seemed like such a genuinely awesome person, and
Yeah.
she truly cared about the victims. Like
Hmm.
she didn't just care about like making money on a story. She wanted those victims to be to be heard and to get some sort of closure.
Hmm. I mean, she like worked tirelessly at this.
Yeah.
Like she was basically the investigator, you
Oh,
know?
for sure.
Like,
Yeah, she was obsessed.
yeah, totally obsessed. But and in her book, she even wrote about the psychological toll that it took on her. And she writes, "There's a scream permanently lodged in my throat."
Mm.
She suffered from anxiety and insomnia because of it. Her husband, Patton Oswalt, said that one time he was like quietly going into their room as not to wake her, and she suddenly jumped up out of bed and swung a lamp at his head. She missed, but um, she mistook him for an intruder. So this was like getting to her head, like bad.
Oh yeah.
She was
Oh
having like
yeah.
vivid dreams about it. Um, and I mean, yeah, I could see why. And that's like I know I've said that, I'm trying to go back to school. I'm trying to go back to school to be a criminal psychologist, but there's like things like this that I feel like I wouldn't be able to handle.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
especially if it involved kids, but I don't know. I
Kids.
guess
Yeah.
to be in that profession, you have to, I'm sure, go through types of training and um I don't know, but I mean, she wasn't even in this profession, but she like kind of fell into it.
Well, that's what's crazy about it is that you don't usually have somebody that is a web sleuth for, lack of a better term, and somebody that like she did podcasts and things of that nature.
Yeah.
You don't typically have them working with somebody, an investigator for the district attorney. Like, it's
Right.
pretty crazy.
Right. And because of her LA Magazine articles, she like law enforcement, they cooperated with her, and they gave her um what's the word I'm looking for? They gave her, information.
Yeah, like sensitive information.
Yeah.
And that was one thing that they talked about, that she had proved herself to be trustworthy, and that was why they were
Right.
willing to work with her over, just being that she was kind of just a random person.
Right. I like that guy Paul Holes. He's
Yeah.
what is his title? It's I know he's something in the Contra Costa,
Yeah, he's the investigator. He's a
like lead
detective
investigator.
for
Yeah.
the district attorney in Contra Costa County.
Yeah, and he had been on the case since like 97, I think
Yeah.
he said. But yeah, so anyway, on April 24th, 2018, authorities arrested Joseph James DeAngelo as the alleged Golden State Killer at his home, and Patton Oswalt claimed that the authorities' use of the killer's name that McNamara coined was proof of the impact of her work.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, she played a huge, huge part in shaping what was to come.
Yeah.
Um, and her work with Paul Holes, who was the guy that you were mentioning, who was the investigator with the district attorney, was directly linked to him being found. I mean,
Hmm.
you can't, it's just crazy. Like, to even
Hmm.
imagine that somebody who is not an investigator, who doesn't have any sort of training to do this, could have such a big impact on the
Hmm.
case.
I think on the show, I don't remember who said it, but I think it was one of the detectives or somebody. They were like, Michelle had just naturally an investigative mind,
Yeah,
and I mean,
you
ultimately,
you
this
could
is
see
what
that.
killed her, you know?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah,
So it's
yeah,
really sad.
yeah. It is definitely sad. I wonder if the stress of it all just was too much for her.
Yeah, but I mean, the fact that, her husband didn't know that she was taking these drugs to um, deal with the anxiety and the insomnia. I mean, mixing Adderall and Xanax and fentanyl,
Yeah,
like,
that's a
that's
lot.
crazy.
That's a lot
Yeah.
for anyone, and then you add a heart condition on top of
Right,
that. It's
right, right.
just, it's crazy.
Ugh.
I know. So, um, that pretty much brings me kind of to where I was in my writing as well. If you want, I can. Did you have anything else that you would?
No, that was pretty much
Okay.
it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. I didn't want to like cut you off.
No, no. I mean, I don't know, maybe we'll update as we watch more of the show. I
Sure.
actually just started the book, like I'm only a few pages in.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
I would like to read the book as well, and I would like to definitely talk a little bit more about Michelle and
Yeah.
her work. I think that she's a fantastic writer, and she was a brilliant mind.
Yeah. Yeah, there really wasn't enough, like, I looked up some articles and there's not enough about her. I think if I read the book and we continue to watch the show, we'll find out more stuff. But so
For
far,
sure.
this is like any article that I read is just like reiterated what the
What the
show.
show said.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And when did she die?
2014. Wait, let me see.
Oh no, 2016.
2016, right?
Okay, so
April
she
21st.
died. Yep, she died on April 21st, 2016. But oh, it's right after. Okay, so right after she died, and it sucks that she missed all of this because she doesn't even know how much of an impact she had,
Mm,
and that all of her hard work and blood, sweat, and literal tears paid off.
mm,
Um, on June 16th of 2016, which was the same year that she died, the FBI had gotten new information about the crimes committed in the Sacramento area. They also got a new composite sketch made up of the Golden State Killer, as he was now called because of Michelle McNamara. And the FBI actually even offered a $50,000 reward for anyone with tips leading to the arrest. So there was definitely a very, very huge renewed interest in solving this case. And I got to
mhm.
say that a big part of that is definitely thanks to Michelle and Detective Paul Holes, for sure.
Yeah, without a
Um,
doubt.
right? It's just, I mean, you can't even dispute that. So in January of 2018, District Attorney Detective Paul Holes, genealogist Barbara Ray Venter, and an attorney in the Los Angeles field office of the FBI named Steve Kramer began trying to figure out for real, like they were like working from the top down, the bottom up. They're trying to figure this out. They used a DNA database named GED Match, and it basically is like a forensic genetic genealogy.
Mm,
So it's crazy. They made a family tree of distant relatives that all were traced back to the DNA from a rape kit. And now, from what I read, there was actually one single rape kit that was key, and it was from a an officer that actually had taken a backup. So when this crime was committed, he did two rape kits. And that's kind of unheard of. Usually, I mean, you hear a lot about they don't even do one rape kit, and this guy
yeah,
actually did two. And it was that second rape kit that was where they got the DNA to put into this GED match database. So it was just kind of like everything fell into place.
yeah.
It was pretty crazy. Um, and the investigators, I guess, found relatives that all shared the same great, 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 that's four, grandfather, all the way back to the 1800s. So they're going way the fuck back. Like, this ain't no ancestry.com. Like, this is beyond that. It
Yeah.
is legit, serious fucking genealogy. And they then took all of those people that were related to that one great 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 grandfather and broke it down into 25 different family trees. And then they kind of would just weed out by all these different factors that they knew about the perpetrator, and they would use all of that information to kind of like whittle down this family
Mhm.
tree, essentially. And the family tree that actually contained Joseph DeAngelo had 1,100 people that they had to go through. And by process of elimination, they used age, sex, and location to rule everyone out until there was one left, and that was
Mhm.
Joseph James DeAngelo.
Mhm.
And it's kind of fucking crazy.
Yeah.
4 months later, like you said, on April 24th, 2018, he was arrested by the Sacramento County Sheriff's Department, and he was living in the home where he was living with his wife and his kids. Like, this was where they eventually raised their kids. Him and his wife had actually separated back in 1991, but they stayed married. And at the time of his arrest, he was living with one of his daughters and his granddaughter, and like couldn't believe it. Nobody could believe that he was being arrested and charged with this. They were just flabbergasted. Which, I mean, I guess you never know what somebody's up to. I don't know. He was charged with 8 counts of first-degree murder with special circumstances, and then a little less than a month later, in May, Santa Barbara County also charged him with 4 additional counts of first-degree murder. And now, when he was arrested, he, I guess, was like sitting in the interrogation room, and he never admitted it, but he said to himself, what did he say? He said that he had an alter ego named Jerry, and that Jerry made him do it. And he said to himself, well, he was sitting alone in the interrogation room, but, I mean, anybody with half a brain, that they're recording everything that you're doing in that room. So,
Especially him having experience
thank
in law
you.
enforcement. Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
So he says, I did all that. I didn't have the strength to push him out. He made me. He went with me. It was like in my head. I mean, he's a part of me. I didn't want to do those things. And then I pushed Jerry out and had a happy life. So nobody believes that. Genuinely, nobody believes that. His attorneys never sought an insanity plea. Like, nobody fucking believes that. You're
No.
bullshitting. It's just like, what is it? Like the Hillside Stranglers, when what's his face
Hmm.
said, oh, I had an alter ego named, what was his name? Steve or
Oh,
something. It
yeah.
was like the most generic fucking name. Oh, it wasn't me. It was Steve. Like, no, fuck you. That's the lamest shit ever. Just admit.
Sometimes they get away with it though, like, well, kind of. I mean, like Son of Sam, that was all an act, and then years
And then
later
he admitted
he
it.
admitted
Yep,
it. Yeah. That I
absolutely.
mean,
They still try it.
yeah. Yeah.
Fucking crazy.
I mean, honestly, unless it's a case like Richard Trenton Chase or Vince Lee or who else have we covered that had like a psychotic break? Andrea Yates.
Yeah,
Someone that is that you can see not by their first of all, I don't really think that they even say like, oh, well, I have this other person. You know what I mean? It's
sure.
kind of just like it's obvious that they,
Yeah, and family members know, like
yeah,
they know that they're having psychological issues, and that's not the case at all with DeAngelo. Everybody says what a nice guy he was and how they couldn't believe it. Neighbors always say that he was, crazy. He would scream a lot. He would, talk to himself a lot, but that does not mean that he was
a
psychotic or
lot of people talk to
schizophrenic
them.
or
So I
mental.
talk to
I talk to
myself.
myself constantly. You're kidding me?
Yeah.
So, after he was arrested, they collected DNA samples. They took like a tissue out of his garbage and they swabbed the door handle of his car, and it was a perfect match for all of the samples from the Golden State Killer. Um, he so in at his arraignment, he was charged with 13 counts of murder and 13 counts of kidnapping. As we mentioned in part one, the statute of limitations had already passed for the rapes and the burglaries, so he wasn't charged with any of those, which is fucking bullshit. Absolute bullshit. That's
I
such a
hate
sin.
that.
I do
I
too. For all of those poor victims, like, what a disgrace.
I hate the fact that there's a statute of limitations on shit like that. Like
Yes.
the system is just so flawed.
I know.
I mean, I don't understand a lot of it.
I know. I know. It's really just disgusting.
Yeah.
So he was not charged with any of that. And then on April 10th, April 10th, 2019, sorry, prosecution wanted to seek the death penalty, and they were going to actively pursue that, and it was gonna probably go to trial, whatever. But then on March 4th of 2020, DeAngelo offered, he basically offered his own plea bargain where he said he would plead guilty if death penalty was completely off the table, which I don't really understand why. Like, he is a fucking pussy, but whatever. And they were like, nah, they weren't gonna actually accept that. And then I guess they came to some sort of agreement where he did actually end up pleading guilty on June 29th of this year. So just two and a half,
Just.
yeah, 2.5 weeks ago. And that's actually what inspired us to talk about this case, where
Hmm.
he pleaded guilty to 13 counts of murder, 13 counts of kidnapping, and he actually did plead guilty to all 50 rapes. So
Yeah.
even though he wasn't being charged with it, he still admitted to it. He confessed. So it's kind of amazing because they initially, like, when all of this stuff was, they had no clue who they were looking at for a suspect. They thought maybe he was dead, because
Yeah.
after that last final attack in 86, that was it. Like, he just completely stopped. So they thought maybe he died. There was a slight chance. One of the profiles said that there was a slight chance that the suspect committed suicide. It was not likely that he was in a mental institution, because his crimes did not portray that of somebody who was mentally ill. That just goes to
Hmm.
show you.
Hmm.
And they really thought that maybe the person that committed these crimes was gone. I mean, it's
Yeah.
crazy. And to look at him now, like, if you see, like, you see him sitting in court, he is just this old wrinkly fuck.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
they said that
He is super creepy looking though.
he's super creepy. He's 74 years old, and
I thought he was older, honestly. He
no,
looks
he
so much
looks
older.
older. He looks like shit. He's got, like, you know, no offense to anybody that has rosacea, but he's got that, like, weird old person rosacea, and he's, like, all busted up looking. Like, he just looks fucking gross, dude. And he also, something that I read, and I don't know if it was like somebody from the prosecution, I want to say it was, but they said that he tries to act a lot more frail than he actually is. Like, he makes them put him in a wheelchair. And when they arrested him, they said he was gardening outside. So, like, he's not frail. He's fine. He's just acting. He's probably trying to garner sympathy, like, oh, look, I'm this little frail old man. But fuck you, bro.
Yeah. And I mean, I know a lot of people probably say, especially if they've never, you know, gardened before, they might say, like, well, that's not really strenuous, but it's strenuous. I
Oh, hell
mean,
yeah.
I
And
like to
he's in
garden.
California. It gets hot there.
Yeah. I mean, I like to go. I mean, especially in Florida, it's like I can't even think about doing that right now because it's so hot.
Even here, it's like 110. It's
Oh,
fucking
yeah,
crazy.
that's right.
It's
That
crazy.
dry heat.
Yeah, yeah. It's still a heat though.
Yeah. It's
Um,
it's so crazy how much of this case, I'm just realizing this now, reminds
yeah.
me of Andre Chikatilo. Like for
Okay.
one, the non-secretor thing.
Yeah.
Also, he would you know, do a series of murder. I mean, he was way more brutal, but he would do like a series of murders and then it would just be like years and nothing, you know?
Yep. Yep.
And then he'd start again.
Yep. It's very, very strange. It makes you wonder if that is part of the psychological, like, oh, well, they're on to me, so now I'm going to take a break and then I'll come back. Like,
Yeah.
and then
Or
I wonder also, like, sorry to cut you off,
no.
but like you were saying, like, maybe they just didn't have time. They had kids, because Andre Ticatello, wasn't he married also?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But the thing that made him want to kill was that he couldn't get it up. And
Oh,
the only way
yeah.
that he could, you know, climax is when
If he
he
was
was
like
like,
stabbing someone, right?
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And he realized that I think when I think when he was like 11, he kind of jumped on one of his sister's friend. No, actually, maybe he was older and maybe the girl was 11. It was one of his sister's friends, and he jumped on her and like kind of tackled her. And when she was struggling, he like ejaculated.
Yeah, that was like gratifying for him. Did I lose
Are
you?
we good? Seems like we're
Okay, it was
done.
frozen.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
It's okay.
Um, anyway, so yeah, so when she put up a struggle, he ejaculated. And then I guess years later, the first time that he killed someone, he started stabbing her, and the second that like he started stabbing her, he ejaculated.
That was it.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Like, yeah. So I mean, in defense of like the insanity plea, yeah, they're obviously not right in the head,
Sure,
but
there's an
it's
issue there, of
right,
course.
of course,
Yeah.
but they're not insane.
No, no, definitely
They
not.
know right from wrong.
Yes, for sure. And there's no, I mean, there's just you can't. He would have known way, way, way before this if he had, uh, multiple personalities or schizophrenia or whatever. Like it doesn't just come out after you kill somebody. Like that's not how
Right.
that works.
Up here
Um,
comes my my other personality that's been hiding away, like
yes. Ooh, I want to do this bad thing, but I can't do it. But let me call Jerry.
yeah,
Like that's
yeah.
not how that works. That's not how any of that
It's
works.
so stupid.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, other people would obviously know too if there was some, even if like they could somehow hide
Yes.
these quote unquote other personalities,
Yes.
people would still know that something was up.
Somebody would have noticed something, and everybody says what a nice guy he was, whatever. I mean, shit, even his wife, uh, she didn't file for divorce from him until after he was arrested. Like
Yeah.
they stayed actually legally married that whole time. Some people speculate it's because if they were still married, that she legally wouldn't have to testify against him. And then once he was arrested, she then divorced him, maybe like, within a year of his arrest.
Mhm.
But it's just weird. Like his daughters, one went on to be a physician of some sort. Like they turned out okay. So he must have been okay at home. I mean, there's nothing of him being abusive towards them. They would argue. That's really all you ever heard. Like neighbors would say they'd hear arguments. Okay, and everybody's gonna argue,
Yeah.
but that's it. Like you didn't hear anything about him beating the shit out of his kids, out of his wife, whatever. So that, I mean, that to me is somebody who can manipulate and have this other, home life and is totally fine otherwise.
Imagine though, like being his child and
No,
I mean, I can't really. I
I
mean,
know. Just knowing that you had your own child because he was living with his granddaughter as well. Like just imagining that you had exposed your own child to this person who did these fucking horrific things. And I also can't imagine what it's like for them because it's almost like that image of your dad is
right.
dead.
Hmm.
It's almost like a death,
Yeah.
really. It's like
Yeah.
you lost your dad because he's no longer that person that you thought he was your entire life.
Hmm.
So also a mind fuck. Like he's just mind fucking everybody, dude. It's a wild case. Um
That's
and
like
it's still going
BTK
on.
also. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. BTK's daughter has spoken and done interviews and stuff like that. And I
Yep.
mean, there's pictures of her and him like at her uh graduation, they're hugging and so
Yeah,
it's just like
happy, like they look like a normal family. It's just
yeah,
crazy.
yeah.
Absolutely crazy. So that's it. I mean, like you said, we'll probably have to do some updates on this, especially as We watch more of the show on HBO.
Yeah.
I'll Be Gone in the Dark.
Yeah.
Just drawing a blank on that. And then and then as also, I mean, I don't know what his sentence I don't think he's been sentenced yet either. So,
No, I don't think so. Because
yeah,
I mean,
it
no,
just
because
happened like 2 weeks ago.
he pled guilty in order to not get the death penalty.
Sure. So now they're going to have
So,
to come up with a sentencing.
and that, I mean, that'll probably be a while too. Sometimes
Yeah.
it takes like a couple, like what I think Casey Anthony was like 2 or 3 years before her
Years.
trial started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. It's crazy. So we'll have to, just kind of keep updated on this, but it's just insane, kind of like we were saying, and also what inspired Michelle McNamara is like, I had never really even heard of this case either. Only within the last year or so had I, after he was arrested or whatever,
Yeah.
I'd never really heard of it before then. It's
And I
insane.
mean, this is not like it's not like this guy, killed like one or two people. Not that that's just as bad, but I mean,
It's like a
this was like
lot of
a
fucking people.
big thing. Yeah, like he
Yeah,
should have been like reported on how like Ted Bundy is reported on or like,
for sure.
somebody like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
And it makes you
insane.
wonder why certain cases are sensationalized and why others aren't. It's kind of
Well, in this
interesting.
case, I think it's because a lot of it was rape, and at the time, it was like the women were getting shamed for being raped.
Very
Raped.
true.
Yeah.
Very true.
I mean, that's what I think. Who
Yeah.
knows? But
Yeah. No, you're totally right. And I want to say they actually said it on I'll Be Gone in the Dark, but rape doesn't have that like fascination that murder does. So a lot of his crimes were rapes and not murders, and that is probably why it didn't get more
Mhm.
coverage because people don't really want to hear about that.
Yeah, and they were. I think was it on the show "I'll Be Gone in the Dark"
I
where
think
they
it
were
was.
saying like rape back then, it was like you'd get like 30 days in jail or like
Oh
90
yeah,
days in jail or like
a slap
probation.
on the
Like,
wrist.
yeah, like
Yep.
it wasn't a big thing. And
Nope.
meanwhile, for a woman, it's
Life
so
changing.
traumatic. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So, all right, guys. Well, on that note, I think we're done.
Yeah, that concludes all we've got for the Golden State Killer and
Yeah,
creepy bastard.
yeah. What was it? Is it how many years until he got arrested? Was it 30, 40? Wait,
All right.
I
Shoot.
can't math.
I ain't good with numbers, girl. He
So
started in 76.
that's what I was gonna say. He got arrested in 2018
40.
for yeah, like 40 years. Wait,
Hold on. I got my phone.
it's
I can't.
embarrassing.
Watch us try to do math, guys. It is
My one
1976.
weakness is math.
44.
44. Okay.
I was almost there. I was
Well, yeah,
getting myself
almost.
close. Jesus Christ.
All right, guys. Well, thank you for watching, or if you're listening on one of our streaming platforms, we will, uh, work on our video stuff. Maybe we got to do something with these backgrounds because that's just weird.
Little weird. Sorry, guys.
All right. Well, we will see you soon. Thanks, sinners.
Stay
Oh,
safe.
yeah. Stay safe.
Wash your
Wash your hands.
hands.
Don't kill
Don't
your
kill your
family.
family.
Bye,
Bye,
guys.
sinners.